No, yeah. No, do you know how much money you'd have to pay NASA to cover that up? Yeah, I know. We'll make it happen. Yeah, they're not gonna know about... No one is gonna believe sky whales on Venus. It's fine. Yeah. The blubber's worth billions. They'll never know. Hey, hello. And welcome to Office Hours, a live part of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors to you, my lovely science and pop culture students, to answer any and all of your nerdy pop culture-y questions. Consider me your own personal nerd. But don't touch me. Don't even think about touching me. As usual, on Office Hours, we go through all of your questions. I'm taking them in the YouTube chat, as you can see below. If you want me to really see something, you can put something in Super Chat, which is active. I hope to get to most of those, but if I don't, I'm sorry. You're still simping for science, and I appreciate that, baby. I'm not selling bathwater, but I am selling education? Anyway, in addition to taking all your comments, questions, and comments about my hair and face, we will also be going through a number of topics this week. We usually go through 5. I've had a lot of coffee, but this time we're only going through 4 because we have a big one. This first one, I want to talk about what we found on Venus. So there was a lot of hoopla about it, and I want to set the record straight. What we found, where we found it, what does it mean, and all that. We'll be talking, of course, about Venus, the second planet from our sunny boy. We'll also be looking at your questions. We'll be talking about wildlife and what's happened to it. Spoiler alert, it's not good. It's not good. We'll also be taking one of your comments in peer review from the last episode at the facility, which was... Castles want to kill you, and we will finally be talking about something COVID related. And if you have noticed that part of my shirt is invisible, that's because we are now selling facility merchandise, which my security team will be putting in the chat. I have used partial invisibility ink on mine. If you want to go get it, you can go to the link in the chat. My security team will do that, and they're there. So if you're spamming, if you're doing all caps, if you're being a dum-dum, you're banned. It's that easy. What do you... This isn't Twitch. I don't know why I'm taking shots at Twitch. Anyway, so before we get to any of your super chats and stuff, I want to talk about the first big topic in the news and on your minds, on my mind. And to do that, I have to go to space. Quickly. Oh, man. Do you see how fast this thing takes off? I mean, for me to be this close to Venus, this quickly in this spaceship, that fusion drive back there, the G's are crazy. That's why I have to pump my blood full. Forget about it. So, Venus. A big study published this week in the Nature journal, one of the biggest scientific journals, one of the most reputable, on Venus and possibly life on Venus. So, what is Venus? Well, it is the second planet from the sun. And it has gone through a tremendous greenhouse gas effect. So it has a very, very thick atmosphere. It has a very, very thick atmosphere with 2 C's because it's volume, cc, cubic centimeters. It's a thuck atmosphere. And this atmosphere has held in a lot of infrared radiation from the sun. So infrared radiation comes in, not as much goes back out, and it heats. And because of this, Venus is basically what hell would be. So, like, the Christian conception of hell, it is 900 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface. The pressure is 90 atmospheres. So 14.7 pounds per square inch is 1 atmosphere at sea level here. Well, I'm not on Earth, but there for you on Earth. Well, my ship is pressure. So 90 times that pressure. It's like being a kilometer underneath the ocean. So you'd die. And there's also acid everywhere, vaporized in pools and clouds. It's fire and brimstone incarnate. It is basically hell. But we can learn a lot about it by sending probes there and robotics there, which we've done, and also just by looking at it. So the context of all of this study is that everyone is super hyped about possibly finding life in the Venusian clouds. As I said, it seems like there's no extremophiles that would be able to survive on the surface of this hellscape. And so there's been speculation about life being in the clouds for some odd like 60 years. In fact, one of the greatest, if not the greatest science communicator of all time, Carl Sagan, used to write about this. Possibly life, microorganisms in the Venusian clouds. Amongst this hellscape, you have tiny, anyway. But he described it as like a shirt sleeve temperature at a certain height above the surface. So at a certain height above the Venusian surface, which is just a wonderful mouthfeel word, there is a temperature and pressure similar to that of a nice zone on Earth. So 1 atmosphere, 70 degrees, shirt sleeve. It's nice. It's not hell. Although some places on Earth right now are kind of, because of climate change, kind of look like hell. But why that section of the Venusian cloud system was under scrutiny, or under scrutiny for possible life, is because at that temperature and pressure, there is water, vapor, there is light, and there's organic. So molecules that incorporate carbon. So with all of these constituents, all these factors, you'd think that if life were possible anywhere on Venus, it might be possible in the clouds. And this is not a singular data point. It's not just, a stab in the dark, because we know that microorganisms can exist in Earth clouds. So, for example, there are just little single-celled organisms that float in clouds, that hitch rides on particles of water vapor and whatever, and just exist up there. So, knowing all that, why is the new study so interesting? Well, we have to, if we want to look for signs for life in other places, we look for quote-unquote biosignatures of life. Some chemical, some emission, some indication that life is definitely there. So we would look for something. The perfect biosignature would be something that if you found it, you'd be like, smoking gun, that means life is there. And there are a number of chemicals like that. Holy crap, we have a $500 simp for science from Haruku Z, who just says nothing. I gotta turn this ship around. Dang, thank you so much, Haruku Z, with the $500 simping for science. Now, this next part of the section, I'm going to nail this next part just for you, okay? So, when we're looking for biosignatures of life, we'd want something that's only produced by life for smoking gun reasons. One of those potential biosignatures is a compound called phosphine, which is phosphorus attached to 3 hydrogen molecules. And why this is so interesting is because why this is a good biosignature is there are very few ways that phosphine can be produced that we know of. It's very hard to produce. So we've produced it in the lab. So humans have done it. It's also produced deep near the surface of gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn, but those conditions don't exist on Venus. And we know that life, anaerobic life, which means without oxygen. So when you hear like aerobic exercise, that means heavy breathing, oxygen. Anaerobic means without oxygen. So there are microorganisms that live in mud and in wastewater and stuff that don't need oxygen to continue on living. So we know that anaerobic microorganisms can produce phosphine. So that might be a good biosignature with so little sources of phosphine. If you found phosphine somewhere else, you might be like, there might be life there. So back to Venus. How would you observe phosphine or another biosignature in the Venusian clouds? Well, you look at them. No, but seriously, you look at the atmosphere through powerful telescopes. And when you look through powerful telescopes, you start to get data that looks like this. This is literally like a face of Venus, just projected in a two-dimensional thing. And what that is looking at, this is from the paper in question, which I'll put in the video comments afterwards. When you look at this, you're looking at this is a study of spectroscopy. You're looking at the spectral lines that are coming from the light of Venus. Now, what does that mean? Well, certain atoms and molecules will reflect different wavelengths of light, or absorb different wavelengths of light, rather. And so if you were to look at a source of light, if you were able to spread that light out with like a prism, etc., and you could look at all the different constituents of that white light, you'd be able to tell where light isn't coming from. And by linking certain wavelengths of light to certain chemicals, compounds, and elements, you can look at some white light, see what isn't there in the spectrum of that light, and then say, well, there must be phosphine absorbing that light. That's why it's not getting to us. So that's spectroscopy in a nutshell. And so when they were looking at Venus, they indeed found evidence of phosphine in the atmosphere. Now, as we said, this could be a potentially very interesting biosignature. We don't have a lot of ways that we know of that it could be created, so it might be life. Oh, but before we get crazy here, hey, whoa. What else could it be? Well, the study looked into that too. So they were looking, and we're not going to read all of these, of course, but they're looking at phosphine delivery from meteorites, from comet impacts, from phytochemical reactions, production by lightning, thermodynamic surface reactions and chemicals. And so they looked at a number of these, and more or less what the study came to say was that there are two options here. One option is that something is producing phosphine in Venusian clouds in a way that we don't understand, a chemistry or a process that's non-biotic, abiotic, not produced by organisms, something that we have not seen before and we do not know how it's happening, or whatever is producing the phosphine in these amounts, it's an unexplained large amount. It's like, well, something must be doing something there. It's not a fluke. It's not random. Either it's some process we don't understand that's abiotic or it's biotic. And when you think about that, that's terrifying and amazing, isn't it? That with the right science, we can kind of get to a point where, okay, something weird is going on in Cloud City there. And it's either Lando Calrissian, or it's some process that's new to science, and discovering that process would be interesting in and of itself, or it's life. Now, we're coming at this from a perspective of our own biology and our own ecology. So it could be some other thing that we're not thinking of too. And that study could be wrong. But we're starting to narrow in. And so what we want to do now is go back to Venus, take more studies of Venus, send more probes to Venus, all this stuff to follow this very interesting lead. Because if you take a chance on discovering life, it would be the most consequential thing ever. If we found other life in the universe, it would recontextualize our position in it. It would redefine our relationship with the universe. Exobiology would probably become the most popular subject for every science student for 50 years. I'm exaggerating, but I'd go back to school to learn about real aliens. You'd probably see a reinvigoration in the space program, in NASA. Funding would change. Students' interests would change. History would change. The world's belief systems and religions would be forced to answer this crazy development. I mean, so many things would shift in this invisible machinery of society. It would be the most consequential thing ever, and it would be the coolest thing in my lifetime for me to see. Probably. Aside from Anyway, I was daydreaming about Jupiter brains. But so that, in a nutshell, is what happened with the Venus study. We found a possible biosignature of life in the Venusian clouds. We don't know what it is, but it could be produced by life, and it could be produced by something that we've never considered abiotically. So this is exciting. It's very exciting. We have not found aliens, and we don't have smoking gun evidence of aliens, but we don't not have that either. So it's time for more investigation, more science, and to return to our sister planet. A hellscape, of fascination. See? Haruko Z, I feel like I kind of nailed that, so there you go. Hunter Spider says, any thoughts about life originating outside of Earth, like panspermia or something like that? We don't have any evidence for how life actually began. That's one of the big unanswered questions. It has started in this, primordial soup ignited by lightning or something like that. We just don't know. We know how life progressed after that. Evolution is one of the, if not, one of the best supported theories in all of sciencedom, but we don't know how it started. That kind of thing is incredibly hard to prove. Go Tanks, hiya! 157 with the 10 says, Kyle, hey, show the love. I wonder about pointing cameras out a light year and sending the signal through a wormhole allowing control in real time. Wondering what your thoughts are on this. Well, cameras out a light year, pointed at Earth and sending the signal through a wormhole. You get some weird causality time travel thing, because if you're doing that camera wormhole stuff, you'd have information getting to a source faster than light could otherwise, and then you'd break causality, and then the universe would fold in on itself, and then Douglas Adams would be like, nice, here's a towel. Aaron Desario with the 20 says, any thoughts on David Fraver's or Bob Lazar's stories? I don't know David Fravor, but I do know the story of Bob Lazar, and I think he's an interesting but possibly deluded man. I don't believe in grand conspiracies concerning aliens and UFOs, just for, if nothing else, then the onus is on the conspiracy theorist, right? So for example, for us to have found aliens at Roswell or whatever, the number of people for the number of years that would have to stay absolutely silent forever is incredible. It would be the most coordinated thing ever. In contrast to that, people can't keep their mouth shut on Twitter. So I don't give that many humans that much the benefit of the doubt that they wouldn't say anything ever. So I think, and going beyond that, there's no actual physical evidence of aliens visiting Earth ever. So put those together, it's a big wall they have to jump over to start convincing me. The Rogue Badger with the 5, it says, hey, show, love the Kyle. Does the partial invisibility on the facility merch look as good in person as it does on camera? Yeah, and if I just position this a little bit differently, you'd be able to, because it's only the wavelengths only partially penetrate, so you'd be able to see my beating heart like I was a baby glass frog. We have 50 from Joe O, who says, just wanted to support you, most amazing videos. See, that's classy. I appreciate that. I try my very best here at the facility. We have a wonderful staff. We have almost 1,300 members on staff right now. If you want to join the staff, it's patreon.com/Kyle Hill. My team will put it in the chat. But we have a lot of fun, and I know it was a weird transition for me to go from being the pop culture superhero because science guy to this, but I'm very happy with how far we've come in just 6 months, and this place was swept and dusted before I got here, so it was nice. It was nice to return to whence I'd came. Death Froud with the 10 says, wow, managed to catch you live. 2020 just got a bit better. Well, I appreciate that, but don't jinx it. I might set on fire. Java Monk says, the Venus life is the proto-molecule. Everybody run. Well, we wouldn't have to run, although it does travel very fast. Maybe the Expanse is true. Aaron Desario with a follow-up 20 says, I think your data are out of date. David Fravor chased the Tic Tac. Many other military have come forward. It is the easiest secret in the world to keep because nobody would believe you with regard to aliens. Let's cut off the super chat right there so we can get to the second topic. Aaron, but let me address that directly. There's an issue. Well, there's many issues. The first being, I don't trust eyewitness testimony at all. And even though military personnel and other professionals can be very trustworthy people, they're very professional people, they're expert, they've seen stuff no one's ever seen, they've been in their careers for 50 years, I value them and I honor them. Thank you for, you are very impressive individuals, but We just know how easily humans create false memories, are wrong about what they see, how perception or desire to perceive something warps reality for someone. And everything that you're saying is very tantalizing. I would love for aliens to be true. That's cool. I just have not seen anything that has the human bias removed that couldn't be better explained by something else. And for something, as I said, that would be the most consequential discovery in the history of the Earth, I need a little bit better evidence than a couple of military guys say something was weird in an infrared camera. And I know I'm being glib there, and I know there's a little bit more evidence there, but the relative scale of things here, where I need to be convinced. And if you think about it, there are a number of theoretical ways you could convince someone very quickly if you had the right amount of evidence. I mean, I like Neil deGrasse Tyson's point on this, where it's like, for any of those people who have been abducted, like, just as you're on the table, and I know I'm being glib here, but you know, as you're laying on the table, you're just like, just grab like an alien ashtray. You bring that back. That is smoking gun evidence. Is like, you just someone examine this. Well, yep, that's silicone-based life in that thing. That's where'd you get this? Oh, well, there you go. So I think human stories are very interesting and compelling, but without independent review and study and confirmation, human stories are just stories. They can become data, but anecdotes are not data yet. You can call them anecdata, which I like to. So let's go on to our second topic, which I forget what it is. Let's be surprised together. I'm a baby bird, which would make me a baby dinosaur. I wonder if my facility cup will also be invisible. Kind of. So every 2 years, the WWF, the United Wildlife Fund, not John Cena, the World Wildlife Fund publishes what they call a landmark report. And what they've been doing since 1970 was tracking a few thousand species and their population diversity and density. And they do this as a way of measuring human impact on wildlife. So since 1970, how have these populations changed? Have they, since this 1970 baseline, have they gone, is there more of the species? Is there less of the species? Is there less species overall? Blah, 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 blah. And a couple of weeks ago or months ago on this podcast, we talked about insects, and I think the figure was like half of insects are gone. And I love insects. They used to call me the bug kid because I would catch bugs and stuff and show them to people. And nobody liked it. I liked it. I once caught a praying mantis in an empty soda cup. And it was one of the crowning achievements of my life. Mantids are badass. Sorry, not like mantids are a badass, as everyone knows. What the hell was I talking about? Right, so the World Wildlife Fund, they just published one in 2020. And so what we would want to see is trends upwards, or at least baseline. But, as you may suspect, because this is the darkest timeline, what we see instead is something like this. So these are different regions of the planet, and what these, obviously, and what these graphs show are, the center of these graphs. So look behind my beautiful mane here. This would be, on all of these graphs, this midpoint at 1, that's baseline 1970. The areas around, the colored areas around the line are confidence intervals. So think of like a polling data. It's like, oh, we think it's 5 points plus or minus 5 points. That's what these colored regions are. But what you can see is that for species number and diversity, I think this is number, in every region it is down. So in Africa, down 65%. In the United States, diversity down a third. China, down almost half. And in the South Americas, 94%. That means the wildlife is almost gone there. on average, if you average all these values, you get a global depression of 68%. While 68% of wildlife is gone. Now, I'm bringing this up because, I don't know, when, like, you, maybe like me, when I was a kid, or maybe still now, you think of the planet and wildlife and animals, organisms, plants, you think of them as being so innumerable that what we do couldn't really impact the planet. Like, right, we have this idea in our heads that there are humans, and then there's the planet, and the planet just does its planet thing, and the biology just does its thing. We don't impact it. But with 7.5 billion people on the planet, using, as the report points out, we are now using, in terms of resources, compared to what the Earth can produce, 1.56 times. So it's like every year, humans are living as though we are on a planet 60% bigger with 60% more resources than it has. So every year we are running a deficit in terms of resources. So it's no wonder then that we're absolutely devastating wildlife. And as we devastate wildlife, well, what we're actually doing is establishing grazing lands for farm animals, deforestation for crops, and that kind of thing. And as we destroy all this land and take it over, evolution is simply not fast enough to deal with that, within 5 years or 2 years or, tomorrow. And so species just simply die out. And it's unbelievably tragic if you think about it, where, I've always been a lover of animals. I think a lot of us are. And if you ever consider yourself, or you want to be like a steward of animals, to have recklessly eliminated over 2/3 of wildlife that are being tracked, but trends are probably similar everywhere. 2/3 of wildlife on the planet seems like just a slap in the face to our time in the sun, doesn't it? Humans are evolved this incredible intelligence, a capacity for love and art and science, and what we do with it en masse is basically eliminate a good chunk of what makes Earth incredible. I know I'm kind of being a downer here. It's incredibly sad. Though I will say that the report does point out that a lot of these trends could start being reversed with adequate environmental protections, species protections. We could do something. So it's not all doom and gloom. We just have to do something. So if you want to join the fight, if you want to advocate for policies, this would be a time, especially, in the next month, looking for policies, candidates and stuff that care about the environment, that care about conservation, because we can't afford to keep this trend going in the same downward direction. It's I want to see this. This is an incredible I mean, there is a baby back there. It's not just me, but this is going away. And I'm going to be selfish here. As a kid who loved wild discovery growing up, who cried his eyes out when I heard that Steve Irwin died, who was the bug kid in grade school, we owe it to the biosphere to be a little bit more, well, not a little bit more, a lot more respectful, for lack of a better word. And it's not just a hippy dippy kind of, well, we should take care of the earth thing either. It is literally, the more we encroach into wild areas, the more we are going to reduce biodiversity, but we're also going to be coming into contact with organisms, especially viruses and bacteria, that we've never seen before. The correlation between new pandemics or new infectious diseases and encroachment into once always wild areas is very good. That's what coronavirus was. That's what Ebola was. That's what AIDS was. The more we recklessly do this, the worse it's going to get for the rest of life, but also for us. And you see how we're handling the pandemic right now. Protect the burbs and not the suburbs. I don't really care about those. We have Hannah Miller, one of my supportive staff members with the 20, says, thank you so much for bringing awareness to issues like climate change, environmental changes, wildlife population, and the human impact on all of it. Here's to support your science communication. Oh, thank you, Hannah. Look, you can tell I get legitimately depressed about some of this stuff, and it would be easier for me as a science guy on the internet to be like, let's pop a balloon full of hydrogen. Hydrogen's, explosive. That's fun. But I'm grown up now. I would be doing it a disservice to all of you if I didn't bring up things that were important to me and that I thought were important for people to know, especially with a platform. So thank you, Hannah. I have another 50 from Aaron, who says, just sending some additional love. Let me buy you dinner. You want to talk about alien stuff, huh? Hey, man, you get me a fancy gin and tonic. We can talk about aliens all night, brother. Well, not all night. Let's not be ridiculous. Charles May with the 5. Hey, show, love the Kyle. How do you feel about the new modal DFC lands? Do you think they may impact EDH? Hashtag Sim for Science. Well, if you don't know, I'm a huge Magic the Gathering player, and in the new set, it was spoiled modal cards you can either put in as the card or as a land, and my opinion is I don't like them. I like the idea of having the option of getting your land drop and not just having a dead card, but knowing that you're playing with sleeves, knowing that you have to play with sleeves that can't be seen through on the back, which you may not have, and knowing that whenever I play these cards, I'm going to have to take them out of the sleeve and put them back many, many times a game, that annoys the hell out of me. I don't like futzing. And what's worse, me futzing, I don't like other people futzing around. People who have every single fetch land and all they're doing during the game is shuffling and rifling through their cards, now compound that with taking things out of sleeves and then, oh, you destroyed that, I'm going to put it back in my sleeve, but I have to flip it. I may never play in-person Magic again. Rainy Day Lady says, thanks, Kyle, I needed a good cry. Well, it's not time to cry just yet. We can still do something, but we need to do something or else nothing's going to change, of course. A Universal Stick with 15 says, things are getting better, just slowly, my friend. You are doing a wonderful part of spreading knowledge and destroying misinformation. You are a bright young man. I'm immortal, but thank you. Zelson, who his avatar is Colin Mockery, so I appreciate that, with the 10, who says, yo, dude, thank you so much for these videos. I love your megastructure stuff. Any plans on collaborating with Isaac Arthur? That's difficult. If you guys don't know who Isaac Arthur is, you should check out his YouTube channel. He does fantastic deep dives on megastructures, like Dyson spheres and Jupiter brains and all this stuff. And he does 30 to 40 minutes on them in a depth that I cannot get into. And it's hard doing stuff like that without stepping on his toes. So I don't know if there's a collaboration in our future, but I would tell everyone, if you like that kind of stuff, Dyson sphere, Jupiter brain kind of stuff, check out Isaac Arthur's videos. He's very good. Kevin with the 20 says, hey, Kyle, I'm just simping for science. By the way, the plaque was eaten by Lola. Kevin! The $20... Are you just going to sit there in the other room and just donate and act like I don't notice? Well, why'd you make it out of meat? He was trying to be sustainable. Let's pause the super chats for just a second so we can get on to our next topic. Joshua with the 10 says, second, the sonic cannon in Incredible Hulk or in Batman v Superman, if you were on the receiving end, could you break through the wave towards the source? Sonic cannons. So there's a sound that would really push you back is like a blast wave. A blast wave starts at 194 decibels, which just means that the pressure wave is at atmospheric pressure. 1 atmosphere, 14.7 pounds per square inch. Could you tell I have an engineering degree? And if you were to constantly pulse out a 1 atmosphere sound wave at someone, that would definitely mess them up. Yeah. Would you not be able to push through it? Maybe. Depends on the speed. Depends on the frequency of the waves, I suppose. Sophorus with the 10 says, hey Kyle, here's a question. We are carbon-based life forms. Could you have a non-carbon-based life form? Love what you do. Keep it up, bro. There are elementary options. What makes carbon so ubiquitous is that it can form 4 atomic bonds. And so there are other things in that column of the periodic table, like silicon, that people have theorized that it can also make 4 atomic bonds that life could also use. But we have no example of that here on Earth. Let's go to our next topic, which again, I forget what it is. So let's figure it out together. Peer review. So, every week, as I am wont to do, I look at all the comments from the last episode of the facility, and I take one that sparks my interest and or is interesting, and we go through it. And then I give them a plaque, don't I? Give them a plaque, and then we talk about it. So this comment is from the episode that castles want to kill you. Everything about a castle is engineered to kill you. And one of my patrons brought this up to me and suggested this topic. And if you want to do that, patreon.com/Kyle Higg, and go to our Discord. I've done like 3 or 4 episode suggestions from patrons. And so I went through a number of ways that castles aren't pretty. They want you to die. And Torfrin Zempel, which is the name you say to that Superman villain if you want him to disappear. Mixelplix? Is that his name? So Torfrin has some corrections for me on my castle episode. One, star forts, which I talked about, were invented in the area of gunpowder, so not archers, just riflemen and cannons. So I implied that it was for archers. I am wrong in that. You are definitely correct. But the idea is the same. So even though it wasn't archers firing off these star forts, the idea is the same. So when you have a normal fort, well, when you think of a medieval fort, you think of these circular archer towers. And when you have these circular archer towers, if you make the angles, say, an archer here, you have a dead zone where an archer could not hit. And so when rifles and cannons came about, and when castle and fort breaching became more advanced, where they could go up to the side of a castle wall and start digging underneath it with machinery, it forced, kind of in a natural selection kind of way, a different kind of design, and this was the star fort design. What the star fort design did is had many look like a starfish, more or less, like a crown star, the ones that eat other starfish, or coral, or coral. They had many vertices and points, looking like a sea star. And what this did, with many vertices and sharp points, it eliminated dead zones. So there's no area I can sweep out with my finger here that isn't in the line of fire. So that's true. Torfrin also says, those Merlins that I was standing behind in my tower, in my projection room, were too short. Yes. You shouldn't have to squat behind cover for like 3 days as you're being sieged. I know. I just wanted to show you, rather than... Look, it takes a lot of computing power from ARIA, and wherever she's getting all that computing power, I don't ask. It takes a lot to move like an entire 3D representation in like a giant, 100-foot tall room. It takes a lot to move that. Do you know what my budget on like projectors is, dog? So it was easier for me to just stand up. So yes, technically they were too short. But I'm lazy inherently, and that's why I'm efficient. Torfrin also says murder holes were holes in the floor that you drop boiling stuff on people, and they weren't the matriculations that Shad pointed out. Yes. But you could call them murder holes, A. And B, I had filmed that before Shad had filmed his thing, so I called them murder holes by accident. You are correct. Torfrin! And then, lastly, Torfrin says, this is more of an omission, but you left out how the gate houses were built to be murder factories. Castles didn't have one big door that you opened up to go through it into the courtyard. They had two sets of doors, so the gatehouse would protrude out from the wall with a door on the outside and one on the inside. Between the two doors would be the kill box where attackers would get trapped until they could break through the inner door. One castle I visited had the floor of the gatehouse sloped down after the outer door until about halfway, so then it sloped up, so you'd be stuck in the middle of the floor. So you couldn't use a battering ram because the angle would be wrong. That's fascinating. I definitely should have included that. That's a fantastic example, Torfrin. Maybe in an update I'll include it. But for mentioning all my legitimate mistakes and for pointing out stuff that I didn't have the time to point out, and I never even heard of that, so that was very cool. For doing all that, you are now, Torfrin, an honorary professor at the facility. Fantastic. Kevin, get the man his plaque. Or them. Get Torfrin their plaque. What? What do you mean? Right now? They're here? What kind of money? All right, sorry. Just a second. I'll be right after this commercial break. I'll be right back. Oh, so nice to meet you. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I love all the support, of course. How much? Well, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of... For what? I mean, like, how much of it? Usually I don't really give away chunks of my hair. But, that is a lot of money. So, I don't know. Have you seen my OnlyFans link? Yeah, it's not public. I tell people I don't have one, but I definitely have one. It's just me brushing my hair. Yeah, we can talk later. Yeah, no, thanks for stopping by. Second door on the left. Make a left and then a right. Don't move you have to move really quickly past the chain whip auto turrets. Yeah, no, there'll be a sign. It's fine. Yeah, and then the elevator all the way up. Yep. Okay. Thank you. We have... The facility is a murder hole. Come on. So we're getting close to the end of the show, and what you just saw there was me having dead air. So let me get to this last super chat, and then I'm going to go on to our last topic. N. Portella with the Russian $12, I'm assuming. Show Kyle, love the hay. How exactly the various space missions avoid contaminating outer space with Earth microorganisms? Well, they are very... Let's pause the super chat so we can get to the last thing, but... And Portella, they are very, very careful. So, to avoid... Oh, neat, I caught a live show, Ashley says. Simp for science. Yes. And Portella, NASA, for example, is very, very careful. So they have an entire division called the Earth Protection Division that their entire job is to systematically test and clean equipment that is going to another planet like Mars. And if you all are familiar with my previous life, that is actually Dr. Moo's current job. So what Dr. Moo is doing right now is taking swabs of the Mars 2020 rover, testing them, growing them in petri dishes to see if there's any microorganisms on there, and if there is, she's cleaning them. She is working with the Mars 2020 rover all the way up until launch to make very sure that there's a minimal amount, the least amount we can have of microorganisms from Earth on it. So we protect these craft and other planets, kind of Prime Directive style, by having people whose entire job it is to do that and to make sure. And that's what Dr. Moo does. And she's a lovely, incredibly enthusiastic and intelligent woman, and I love her. Enough said. So our last... Ow! It's fine. It doesn't hurt that much. So my last topic that I want to bring up is, of course, pandemic related, because it's another week in hell. And I kind of just want to do... This is going to be very quick, and we get back for the last couple minutes. But I want to do some reality checking here. And again, especially in the US where it's so bad, I keep saying this. But in the United States where people are itching to get out of lockdown and politicians and stuff are saying, well, you know, we're going to have a vaccine very soon. And, you know, this thing will be gone. I don't think science knows about it yet, but it'll be gone. It's fine. Is it? So let's think about the raw numbers here. So the earliest that we're probably going to have a vaccine, one that really works, probably next year. So, hey, that's bad. But now think about what would we have to do? What would we have to do to eradicate this thing? What would we have to do to make COVID not like the seasonal flu? To wipe it away from enough human bodies such that it has no more hosts. We can relegate it to the dustbin of society, as it said, like polio or measles, those kind of things. Well, one problem is that the vaccine, no vaccine is going to be 100% effective. What I've seen is that they're shooting for 75% effective, which is more effective than the seasonal flu vaccine. You should still get a seasonal flu vaccine. But also the immunity conferred, it looks like isn't super long. So it's not like a tetanus shot that you only get it once every 10 years or whatever. So you might have to get like 2 doses. Every human is a potential spreader. And so with 7.5 billion people on the planet, that's 15 billion doses. Now, what the largest manufacturer of vaccines in the world says, the earliest we're going to reach that number of doses so that we can really eliminate this problem. And so it doesn't become a seasonal thing where changes in behavior and environment give us pulses of cases like it does for the flu. The earliest is going to be 2023. But Kyle, it's 2020 now. I know. So over 1,000 days from now, will we be in lockdown that whole time? No. We'll start, once the first vaccines are out, the first antiviral treatments are out, we'll start getting a handle on this thing depending on our adherence to lockdown and stuff. Excuse me. But I want to reality check us here a little bit in that I think a lot of people are just waiting for science to just straight up solve this thing. But that's not how this kind of process works. It takes a long time. Like, really, really effective vaccines are in the pipeline for like 5 years. You know. So to answering this problem quickly isn't something we're really equipped to do. And so, in the meantime, the best thing that you can do right now to get this more under control than it is socially distance, wear a mask, get a flu shot, wash your hands. I know I sound like a broken record, but a lot of people need to hear this song. Oh, man, I nailed that. So with the last couple of minutes, let's go to Master of All, 1294. Wonderful supporter of mine. He says, first part of a live stream I've caught in a month. That's not true. I saw you last week. I'll get back to my post at the facility soon. Good to see you, Kyle. Well, I appreciate that, but you know how long your break, you don't get that long of a break. Get back to work. Thank you. I'm a cool boss. Lilit, one of my great professors, says this is also assuming that a vaccine of that efficacy is even possible. Yeah, they're shooting for it, and there's other pipeline problems. I'm just remembering. So the largest vaccine manufacturer is from India, and with 1.5 billion people in India, that's a lot of people to vaccinate. There's economic problems here too. They don't have enough vials right now, and they do not have an effective cooling transport line. So vaccines need to stay chilled. But in India, they don't have the system set up to transport chilled vaccines all across the country. Groups face similar difficulties in Africa, where I don't know if you know this, but it can be pretty hot in Africa. And so even if you had a 100% effective vaccine, you might not be able to get to everyone quickly. And so that pushes this even further out. Grin Reaper of Trolls with the 20 says, hey, Kyle, live the show. Do you think you'll make more appearances on Magic channels playing CEDH? I've been getting really into it lately. I built Kinnan, and it is insane. Yes, the Kinnan deck, my friend also built it, and it is insane. I will be making more appearances on Magic the Gathering channels when I can. And I did a podcast with some CEDH guys, CEDH Cast, and I'm frequently on game nights and stuff, so I'd love to do more of it. I'm also thinking, we'll see, but I do have a great idea for a Magic the Gathering channel. It's unrelated to anything I'm doing here at the facility, but I do have a great idea. We'll see if I can make it happen. Breadboard with the 40! Kyle, I thought members of the facility were to, quote, ixnay on the inclay for only fans' sake. Hashtag, I'll sip no sign. What are you talking about? As I said numerous times, I do not have an OnlyFans where Aria is just brushing my hair for an hour. Where would you even get that kind of information? That's ridiculous. And I'm suing you for libel. Kyle Trevino with the 10, cool name, says, I've equated the U.S. government wanting to open up too early with the mayor from Jaws. Exactly. Just consider, every governor who wants to open up their state too quickly just has like that blazer on. It's like, come on, the beaches. Come on, if we close the beaches, come on. And then people die, literally. It's not fun. Although, it's kind of funny. The comparison. Guitar Hero Man with the 5 says, hey, oh God, love the Hey Kyle show. Engineering student here, simping for science live from class. Oh, you got headphones in? Keep up the good work. I'll see you at work. Are you in engineering class right now? If you're in engineering class right now, I want you to... No, don't mess with your education. Manny Mata with the 20 says, hey Kyle, thanks for all the great information. If the universe is spherical, could light travel around and potentially see our images of galaxy from the past? Yeah, that's one idea. The one idea is that, and I haven't really read up on this, but I know one idea is that if you could travel to the edge of the universe, you'd come back on the other edge of the universe. I also know that if you were a guy, you'll understand what I'm saying in a second, and you were to pee horizontally on a sufficiently small asteroid, you could pee on the back of your own head. These are things that I know. Grin Reaper of Trolls with the 5 again, would absolutely support the Magic channel. Yeah, I do have a good idea for it. It's just a matter of resources. So right now, actually, so I'm going to bring you in on a little something, because a potential party might be watching this live stream. But I've been wanting to do longer live streams, and more twitchy kind of stuff where, say, we could play science fiction video games interspersed with office hours. So we could be playing games, we could be doing just chatting, we could take all of your questions, we could do all of this thing in big, 4-hour chunks a couple times a week. That's something I've been looking into, and it's a matter of resources. So simping for science always helps, but maybe if we get to a certain point, we'll see in the next couple weeks and months, maybe we could do that kind of thing, a more twitchy kind of thing, where you could spend your day with me, and I could spend your day in your home. So not like that. With that, let's cut off the super chats just so I don't miss anybody, and I wouldn't want to miss anybody. Philip, did you hear what I just said? Philip with the 5, who didn't hear what I just said, says, I can't have my immune therapy for MS because people won't stay home. I get even more nerve damage now. Y'all messing with Philip. He's got problems. You not being comfortable. It fogs up my glasses. Tough. Philip has got real stuff to do, okay? He's got his problems make your problems look dumb. I mean, statistically. Do it for Philip. I do it for Philip every day. Put on a mask just for Philip. I've said it multiple times on record. Wear a mask for Philip, or I will find you. The Ryshanik, I get your name right every time now. With the 10, we are so used to instant gratification that we cannot grasp having a quick fix. Yeah, I kind of talked about this in my How COVID Breaks Your Brain video, but viruses like this, because they're a slow burn, our psychology doesn't really work with, well, if I do something now, then 3 weeks from now, I might see a benefit. So because you don't see like an immediate effect from wearing a mask, it's like, well, then it's doing nothing. And another thing, when people say, especially on Twitter to me, people are saying like, well, the virus is smaller than thread spaces in a mask. It doesn't do anything. A, it's not the reason we wear it. And B, viruses don't just float in the air by themselves. They're usually hitching a ride on something like water vapor, which comes out of someone's mouth. And those water vapor droplets are large enough to be caught by the threads in something like a nice fabric mask. So it would have some effectiveness greater than 0, and it was 60% effectiveness in reducing the outflow of virus from your own face. So wear a mask for Philip! Gosh. Who am I even yelling at? I don't know. Somebody who went to the Sturgis biker rally, I guess. It's okay, they're not watching. JT with the 5 says, hey, love the Kyle show. The OnlyFans account is actually Aria's. Last week she uploaded a close-up of her CPU hot sink. Super hot. Here's the thing. How dare you? Second of all, nice. That was pretty funny. Zaffles with the 5 says, gotta head off to chem exam. Glad I was able to catch this. Good luck on your chemistry exam. Remember, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. That's Avogadro's number. Stoichiometry, it's spelled weird. Make sure to get that I in there. Dominant and recessive alleles. Oh, it's chemistry. Oxidation. It's been a while since my bio class, but I'm sure that helped. Let's take our last super chat for today. Music Central Piano 29, always coming in with the big support. 5115, keep up the great work, Kyle. Always appreciated. The reality check is needed. Science has and continues to provide a plan of best practices, mask, social distancing, etc., since it is literally how we know anything. Follow the numbers, ignore the nonsense. Quote of the day. Follow the numbers, ignore the nonsense. Love it. But I have to get to the 5 from Chris Spaghetti. Vomit on his sweater already. Hey Kyle, would you possibly do an episode on gravel electromagnetism and possibly using magnets to create an anti-gravity-like force? That's the last super chat because yes, I am actively talking with a company to do that very episode. So what did we go? So yes, to answer your question, I will do something like that very soon. So what did we go through today? Well, we explored what we really found on Venus, a potential biosignature in the form of phosphine pH3. We haven't found aliens yet, but it's a decently good marker of possibly life. So what we need now is more science. We also talked about the reduction in worldwide biodiversity, 68% since 1970. So in the last 50 years, most animals are gone because of us. So if you don't like that statistic, you should speak up, do something about it. We also talked about some problems with my castles episode, and we learned about a very devious little engineering design inside of the guardhouse. And finally, we talked about the earliest that we're going to get out of this hole. But you know, we'll make it get out faster if you all wear a mask for Philip. So thank you so much for joining me during this office hours. What's on the docket this week? Oh, right. We are going through, for this episode, probably airing Friday morning, probably. We will be going through a very ridiculous design for something that's for a common occurrence that humans go through, and the physics of which and the graphics of which are very, very interesting. But coming down the pipeline, oh, we got some bangers. I have, right over there, is a chunk of uranium. So look forward to that. And also, right underneath my desk here, I have about 100 pounds worth of steel that I will be using for, it will be around my body in some way. So look forward to all that. I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic rest of their week and then going into the weekend. Of course, if you enjoyed this, if you want to join me, if you want to talk to me almost every day in Discord, if you want to see episodes of the main show early, if you want to give me episode suggestions, if you want to join our Magic the Gathering League, RPG nights, all this sort of stuff, and see behind the scenes content, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. My security team will be putting that in the chat shortly. We have 1,300 people doing that right now, most of them at the highest tier. It's fantastic. I love everyone's support. And you can also buy facility merch if you click the Redbubble link at the top of the channel on youtube.com/Kyle Hill Science. And it all goes towards the nerdiest cause of making things nerdier. So have a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you soon. Not live. Next Tuesday, I'll see you live. But until then, please be nice to each other. And especially Philip. Because it's interaction. Us. That's all we got.